So I think we can start. Welcome to this stream, this seminar and stream, and short explanation. What is this? This is a continuation from our previous seminars devoted to combination of conventional and unconventional science, to some boundary areas of modern development, to biohybrid system, integration of implants, for instance, in the humans, and all these problems that arise. And particularly, we discussed points of unusual human capabilities. And we tried to explain these capabilities. And finally, we come up with the idea that we need a new seminars, new streams with a dedicated point of consciousness. And quantum consciousness is a new theory, new scientific theory. So, and we selected a focus of this discussion, in fact, is a strange, sound a little bit strange, is the immortality of consciousness. Why immortality? Because from technological side, we have a lot of development in implants. We have, for instance, Neura implants, also Neura links from Elon Musk, you know, they start now experiments with humans. And people looking for extending lifespan, so huge market, about in 2 years, we think it will arrive about $500 billion. So it's really a huge amount of funding. And people would like to live longer. So in discussion, it's about 150 years, probably 200 years, and potentially we speak about biological immortality. So it's absolutely an unknown area for us with unexpected consequences. But we remember at the same time, on the quantum side of consciousness, we could have potentially also immortality of consciousness. We call it a kind of subtle field immortality, whatever does mean. Yeah? So from this point of view, we invited different people and discuss all different aspects of consciousness, quantum consciousness, quantum theory, immortality. And today we have a special guest, Professor Igor Jerman. Igor, welcome to the stream.
Greetings to everybody.
We really, it's nice to meet you here, and it's great that you accept our invitation. Before we start, short question. I know Igor is a head of BION Institute. It's a well-known organization in measuring different human capabilities, biofields. Igor, short question to you. Why basically are you doing this? What's the motivation?
What is our motivation? Well, it goes very, very much back into my student years, when I was dissatisfied with, let's say, molecular reduction of organisms and of life, you know, so that they were seen only from the standpoint of molecules and molecular interactions. So my intuition was and vision that there has to be much more to life than envisioned in this genocentric and molecular-centric biology. So I started to think on more comprehensive understanding of biology, and this led me to bioelectromagnetics, so the bioelectromagnetic phenomena in organisms, and gradually also to some unconventional phenomena in water, because water represents, let's say, around 65% of our body weight. And this all comes together into, let's say, the concept of the subtle energy research or subtle field, biofield, whatever the terms. Okay.
Sound great. Well, typically, this is still a scientific presentation, so we decided to do this in a combination between presentations and discussions. So today I will short give the overview of topics in 3 slides. Igor will also show. And I think we can start a little bit in a more deeper discussion of the topic of biofield measurements on all these quantum size. I would like to start with a presentation that provided by British Institute of Physics. This was published about 2 years ago, Currently, we have a little bit more updated versions, but it's still of interest. So this address that everybody can check up this. And the point is, do quantum effects really play a role in our consciousness? And the main point of this overview is that quantum effect in brain, they really take place. It's not only, you know, a discussion, because everybody now say quantum, but not really explaining what does it mean. Here, quantum effects that take at 3 different levels in our brain. The first physical levels, for instance, quants, so biophotons is well-known topics. Then we have different phenomena at cellular level and at the level of physical chemistry. Level of cells is really of interest, because here focus of all this quantum phenomena are microtubules and mitochondria. And mitochondria and microtubules, there is a huge number of publications, especially microtubules. It seems that information, also signals that going in the axon of neuron, they create a lot of effects like tunneling. They create a lot of effects like specific limitation, quantum limitation stage, and finally this end up with some level of receptor and signals here. The main point of this image, why I show this, that whatever we do in our brain, in our consciousness, is taking place at 3 levels. The first is level of signal, electrical signal that we have in brain, like in normal computers or artificial intelligence, work in the same way by electrical signaling. And we can measuring by AEG, for instance, this level. But the second level is a level of biochemistry. So all the signal propagation are generated by specific changes in metabolic processes. They change some chemical substances, and this generate again next sequence of changes. So we have a huge biochemical machinery, and this is our second level of consciousness. And the last level, all these changes are propagated and generated also at quantum level. And here we, like I said, we observe a huge number of different effects, like entanglement, like tunneling, like spin phenomena. And then this exactly when people say that our consciousness is not only, you know, as a biological or not really comparable to artificial intelligence in computer, because our consciousness work at least at 3 different levels. So it is one of the point. And here in IOP, there is a lot of different links and publication, and in more, also this explanation can be found here in much more detail. Level of physical chemistry. This is the most interesting level. It is related to spins. And what is spin? You know, in electrons, for instance, they rotate in, for instance, this way or another way, same with protons. And all this rotation is extremely low energetic. And here we encounter a number of interesting phenomena. And one of these phenomena is entanglement. If 2, let's say, electrons, they generated by one quant of light, for instance, and they become entangled, and the distance, in fact, is not encountered in this equation. So it's just a one-way function, and changing one side, we change the same way another side, to some extent, of course. And this, more or less, you know, provides some explanation for all of this long-distance effect or distant phenomena that we normally encounter in the consciousness or in biofield, all these biological systems. Here, at least in the brain, we have very specific molecules as POSNER molecules. Here, entanglement phenomenon in phosphorus. But in our research, there's not only phosphorus, the spin effect that take place even with water. And in water, as you know, there's 1 oxygen, 2 hydrogens, and these protons, they can rotate at the same direction or in opposite direction. So we speak about 2 isomers. And the point is, it's just the same molecules of water, but they behave, these 2 isomers, like 2 very different molecular species. And there are 2 key points in this discussion. First of all, in water, in all water-containing media, our tissue, plants, I mean, almost everything in the earth has a water. So it's really a huge phenomena. So we have 2 isomers. They are in 1:3 ratio. but they can be changed. And this energetic transitions, this conversion process, extremely low energy. So by some estimation, energy for conversion from ortho to para isomer is about 10 of minus 25 joule. I mean, it is extremely low energy. We can even speak to some extent about energy-less transformation, about pure information processing in this way, yeah, as a first point. So if we activate, for instance, water, or we activate in another way, we observe this conversion from one isomer to other isomer. The second point, like I said, they behave as two different species. They have different chemical reactivity. They have different behavior in magnetic and electric fields. They have even different physical properties, surface tension or viscosity. For instance, this is not only related to water molecules. We have the same phenomena in hydrogen, in methane. We have different spin state in oxygen, singlet oxygen, and ferrum-3. So we can even, by this changing of spins, we can modify it by chemical pathways. So, for instance, stop one pathway, open another pathway. There's a point of this chemical catalyst. So, and in this way, we see a link, like here, we have information processing in axons and quantum level, and they can be connected to almost all biochemistry in the environment. I mean, all whatever in the environment, they can be, somehow related to our consciousness. And one example is last slide. We can go in this discussion points. Igor, probably you performed the same experiments, but this well-known point. This last years, we invited two monks, Buddhist monks, and asked them to make a meditation in presence of sensors. These water sensors, like they're measuring chemical reactivity, thermodynamics. And what the point is here, these monks, they entered in the room, so the sensors are protected. So we have shielding from thermal phenomena, from electromagnetics, electrostatics. So they do not react on these physical fields, but we ask Buddhist monks to focus their attention at one of the sensors, and they really start meditation. And we extremely, the difference, accuracy about 20 seconds. If they start a meditation, we immediately see a change of electrochemical reactivity. So the system start to behave more faster, all this electrochemistry. And then if they stop this meditation, also again, it's about 20 seconds. So we see a change of chemical reactivity. So there is a clear correlation with the consciousness of this Buddhist monk. Igor, we lost you in the Skype. So point is here. We probably go a little bit more now to discussion. Igor, probably first question to you, and also some general question. We know there are different biofields. So thermal field from human person, electromagnetic field, electrostatics. We have a kind of mechanical interactions. But it seems that here we encounter a completely new kind of interaction based on spin phenomena between mind and matter. And the question is this a biofield? Is this a new biofield? What are consequences? Yeah. Second point, information processing. As usually we say, well, information processing is only in the biology. But even now, if I'm speaking with you, I'm interacting with all my local environment. And this local environment interact with me. Of course, this impact my consciousness to some extent. And now a question is, okay, that it seems that I'm performing my computation not only in the biological system, but also in the environment. And of course, open question, okay, how do this reflect in all this, scientific discussion? Can I use in practical ways? I mean, there's a huge field also of possibilities. And the last point, immortality. If, my consciousness, I can run program of my consciousness in a sort of environmental computer, so I can transfer consciousness in this non-biological system, then probably this is a new way of immortality. So it's not any esoteric ideas, it's, to some extent, it's a kind of technological development. Okay. I think this is all from my point for the discussion. Igor, what do you think? Which of these points attract your attention?
Okay. May I have now my own presentation?
Yes.
So to begin with discussion, and okay, I hope I'll manage it. So now I will go just to complement what Serge Kernbach said. So he spoke about many phenomena that are not yet covered by contemporary standard academic physics. They may be called anomalies that are not explained. They are not explained actually by standard model of elementary particles. And this is a presentation, the understanding of how matter is composed and how the field should work. Now, if we come, so this unexplained phenomena represent a doorway to the unknown aspect of nature. And we have three possible, let's say, explanations. Namely, that it is about ultra-weak manifestations of known fields, that some unconventional manifestation of the known fields, like, let's say, torsion fields, scalar fields, and so on. And the third, that it is as yet scientifically unrecognized field matter working through subtle interaction with ordinary fields, and of course that should have some reference to consciousness and mind, as Serge mentioned before. So here we have a plethora of scientists who also tackled this problem of, let's say, subtle matter, subtle field. We can begin with Aristotle, who spoke about quintessence, so the finest substance. Then we can go to Newton in the 18th century, Faraday, Lord Kelvin, Maxwell, who saw this ether, so something very subtle matter, as something that is behind electromagnetic phenomena, like a medium for a spreading of electromagnetic fields. Then we can come to William Crookes, who speculated about some primordial matter that composes hydrogen. This is the lightest element of all. And then to Ludwig von Reichenbach, they both worked in 19th century, who did many experiments with humans who allegedly saw aura or some emanations, so who in a way were clairvoyant, and he interrogated them independently and came to interesting scientific conclusions that he even published at that time. This was not such a problem as today. And then we come to the beginning of the 20th century with Einstein and Rutherford, who actually expelled ether or subtle matter or subtle field, subtle energy from physics altogether. They had other explanations that seemed to contemporary physicists as more convincing than some etheric ideas. Okay, so, but still, the ether idea was not totally banned from scientific work, so that were scientists who continued with the research of the ether, of this subtle energy, subtle matter, biofield, if you wish. Reichenbach, we know this was in 19th century. I mentioned him, so I moved now to Reich, who did a lot of research with this ether or biofield energy. He called it orgone, and he found that this should be something like life energy, like bioenergy, that it works in the way of negative entropy, so in increasing order, not diminishing it, and that it had a very interesting affinity to water, and that it can charge up water. This is so important because it seems that through this research and consecutive research, we can try to understand how this subtle matter or subtle field can actually work through brain, through these neurophysiological processes that Serge mentioned before. Namely, in the last analysis, this ether should work through, let's say, some charge separation, and it seems that it can do this, and it was confirmed through other research, so not through brain research, but let's say research in the so-called orgone accumulators, or even some water research. Now, you see, there are many other physicists and scientists who worked on the field of subtle energy research, like Freeman, Cope, and other scientists that even Serge Kernbach wrote about in his article Unconventional Research in USA, Russia. And there are now many others who still work in this field, like Canadian researchers Paul Alexandra Correa. They call it heterometry, and they found many interesting phenomena. They even have some specific unconventional theory for that. Now what we do at our institute is mostly we specialized to identify subtle field effects through measuring conductivity, then oxidation reduction potential, pH, and UV spectroscopy for water that was exposed to some subtle field sources like orgone accumulator or bioenergy healers, or even certain symbolic forums, like forums. I think, Serge, that you did many experiments with forums like Contour, so we know that even by certain forums we can concentrate or condense this subtle field. And so we did a lot of research, and you see there are certain results, statistically convincing results. So actually what I show here is ultraviolet absorption. These were experiments made by De Meo, and these are some of the experiments made by our group in water conductivity. This is, for instance, from the specimen exposed to orgone accumulator, the memory effects of 1 week later when they were not exposed anymore, and this is for the control. And you see there's quite a different experiment with pH, so acidity or alkalinity, and we see that in this case orgone moved pH of our specific detecting liquid towards the neutral pH. I think that this is our team. We have another man now. So I would finish now this short presentation. Yeah.
Okay. You said orgone. This attract my attention. we had already discussion last year in the Polo conference. What do you think? Orgone was formulated. I would say how many years ago? 50, 70? Also real, also in past, yeah. And now
in 40s. I think
40,
that mostly in 40s.
Yeah, it's about 80 years. Yeah. Now we have completely new developments. Also quantum theory, all these crazy things. And now, what do you think? What is the combination? Should this combined with a normal science, with a classical mainstream science, or should this still be, orgone, something like a separated field of research, and we don't need any combination? We don't need to involve a modern theories for this, or reformulate this in the modern way.
Well, now I did a lot of theoretical work on this. I mean, it's my mind, and I think that the both approaches should be followed. So first, we should follow the approach that organisms, let's say something like electricity in the 18th century. So something that we don't know what really it is composed of, and perhaps we should research it just like electricity was researched in terms of Faraday, Ohm, Ampere, and other physicists of that time, just to know some basic relations between, let's say, orgone source and some detecting methods that we can use for detections. And there are many of them, not only these four that I showed. So this is one, I think, very important approach to come closer to some basic laws, basic mechanisms, so that we can know what is it about. For instance, also memory effects. How long does it take for this organ to fade away from water, So what is the memory effect? And then what is the relation between, let's say, the source of a specific orgone energy, like bioenergy healer or orgone accumulator, or some other source, and the exposure distance, of the detector, and so on. And what is Reich did, and some other researcher after him, is also what is the conduction of these specific subtle fields, subtle energy through wires, It is said that this conduction velocity is around a meter per minute or so, so it is quite a slow conduction. So then, if we have settled such questions, then we can come closer to some sort of theory that would be basic, like what is this energy about? And of course, there are also energy questions in the sense, let's say we have two different sources of orgone or ether or subtle fields. They are synonymous for me now, as for this time. Now, if we know that one is, let's say, weaker from another, what does it mean in energy that can be detected in terms of, let's say, microwatts or so, or joules, microjoules, if it is about energy, and at certain distances and so on. So this is one thing. Another thing is what you said, this quantum nature. What we know from really extended research, not from our group, but let's say from the whole world, I showed you this, just this short list actually of scientists, is that this energy can manifest itself in macroscopic dimensions in the quantum-like manner. So what does it mean? That it can show something like superposition, tunneling, and also the entanglement, which means that that two objects that were together at certain point can still share some aspects if regarded from this subtle field as when they are separated. But through the eyes of academic physics, this cannot happen in this macroscopic domain, and if we are not near, let's say, 0 degree Kelvin, because academic physicists normally would say that if you do such experiments at our temperature and in macroscopic domain, there would be many interactions immediately after we separated these two objects that would somehow cover, or blur this connection. So they would not say that there no connection is still here, but that other connections somewhat came here, and that it is blurred then. So yeah.
But here, if I return to this biofield, now let's combine biofield and orgone and formulate this in the term of spin isomers, for instance. And say, well, we have different combination of spin isomers, and through putting a little bit energy even from heat of human heat, I can change this ratio. And though I have changing physical properties, I can explain in this way changing of conductivity. So I don't need in this way to put any additional substances. So I have, in fact, no problem with publications. And by the way, academic community, explore quite intensively now macroscopic entanglement. So we have publications about entangling bacteria and light. So about 6 or 7 years ago, 2 years ago, we had a new publication and entanglement, this microscopic organism. I forgot the name of this organism. I think now is published. And we have a huge number of macroscopic entanglement in mechanical arrays of mechanical oscillators. Of course, quantum system of many degrees of freedom, and this I think it's many dozens of such publications. So my point is following: if we now start to rethink all these old ideas from orgone, from biofield, from the subtle energy in more modern manner, with modern terminology, probably, first of all, we can use scientific instruments, we can avoid scientific resistance. We can be integrated in the whole scientific field. Of course, use funding mechanism for scientific proposals, scientific projects. Is this a way what at least you think for your laboratory?
Yes, I think that the strategy that we follow is to make, let's say, this detection system as reliable as possible. And from the standpoint of technology of detection, though this is a measurement problem that should be solved in a very high level. And then, of course, in the term of statistical analysis of the results, I think that what is very important is to follow also other let's say astronomical events that can somewhat change, the results, like these dark spots on the sun, so sun's activity, geomagnetic activity, yes, meteorological effects like pressure and so on. So this is one thing. Because what I think Serge, very well too, is that this subtle field phenomena are prone to different influences from environment that are almost uncontrollable, and it is a problem now here. Okay. Now, if we come to the question about resorting to spins, yeah, I would say that move in this direction as far as you can, with so that with the theoretical explanation of the results. I mentioned Freeman Widner-Cope in my presentation, who was, I think, one of the greatest physicists. He did not speak about spin, but his theory was based on Schwinger's model, magnetic model of matter, which is interesting because when we speak about spin, we speak about magnetic moments of matter. So now it is a question, really a big question, if this, let's say, etheric matter or energy or whatever is just based on spins of conventional matter like electrons or protons, or are there other moments, something what was quoted in Schwinger's theory. Schwinger was a great, Julian Schwinger, a great American physicist. He won this Nobel Prize for theoretical work in physics. I think that he was one of the founders of quantum field theory. And he spoke about particles that can have a magnetic charge. It is these magnetic monopoles were not yet discovered, but maybe the methodology of physics is not suitable for such particles to be discovered. But in any way, what we find as spin can be bound to such particles. So I think we should be very open if we see, let's say, spin phenomena from conventional matter that are quantum mechanically spread into even macroscopic domain, or are we looking at something that is not yet discovered by modern physics? And if we do a research in modern physics, we see that there are fields challenging academic physicists. We know that there is something like dark matter and dark energy. I think that for some 80 years or so, and still physics is completely in
discussion. Yeah.
Yes, what this should be about, So we know that there is a place for an unconventional matter and unconventional fields here, but nobody knows what is it composed of. Why? Because standard model particles of that are presented in this modern physics were found in colliders, where higher and higher, stronger and stronger energies were used for smashing particles. As one physicist said, maybe this is similar to try to know how Swiss watch works if we smash two Swiss watches together, you know, very strongly, and then try to explain how they work, you know. Maybe in these colliders we come to a sort of artifacts. I wouldn't say that this is wrong, the theory of standard model is wrong, but maybe it represents only a part of reality, while another part of reality that is here all around us is still hiding, you know. And what is important here, perhaps when I mention this dark matter and dark energy, is that the idea of dark matter that stems from contemporary physics is based on extrapolations of the actual standard model. And this may be wrong too, because physicists see dark matter as something that is, let's say, cannot accumulate, cannot form anything special in living beings or water or so, you know. So I think that the extrapolations from something that can be artifact can be artificial too. So this is the reason why I think that we should research this orgone or subtle field, subtle energy, biofield from the beginning too, you know.
Okay.
And of course, take into consideration all that quantum physics and quantum field physics can bring us.
Yeah, then when I correctly understood, please correct me. So at least my assumption is a biofield is something from thermal phenomena, electromagnetic phenomena, even in terahertz range. You know, currently there's a lot of cell-cell communication in terahertz range. Okay, then we have definitely biophotonics. We have definitely something from electrostatic mechanical interaction, plus we have something like entanglement phenomena. So this, from my understanding, is a biofield. You say probably the same plus some unknown value that now we basically we don't know. It's something what we can discover later on, but it's still here. And my question is following: in something to detect means something to measure. And it seems if we don't know what it is, we cannot measure this because we cannot make any assumption, any hypothesis. What's your approach? What do you think? How we can still measuring this unknown effect and to be sure that it's really something what we assume?
Well, I think that this is our hypothesis. Maybe different from yours, but it is just richness of science, is that this subtle energy can be covered by all these phenomena you mentioned, but in the last analysis that it is something else. This is why I spoke also about dark matter or dark energy. And that now, how can we measure it? I think that it can, that this energy is based on, let's say, electric dipoles that can also have a magnetic charge. This was well researched by Freeman Cope. He published around 20 articles about it, and they corroborated his hypothesis. Okay, now this means that such particles are similar to water molecules. So because water molecules are dipolar too. And we know from quantum electrodynamics, you know the work by Giudice, Vitiello, Preparata, that at least in 2 dimensions, water has so-called coherent domains, so that there is something where the oscillations, electronic oscillations, are coupled together and synchronous, like light in lasers. So I think that this, whatever is covered by ether or orgone, is its major part also exists in a way of coherent oscillations. So these coherent oscillations of orgone can be coupled to water coherent domains, and they can share their energy so that through certain measuring systems, using water as a detector, you can measure this slight energetic phenomena. So by water or specific solutions, but mainly composed of water, you can have a detector of this. And I think that your electroimpedance spectroscopy is very, very near to this too, you know. But otherwise, we even see changes in pH or in conductivity and so on. And we think that, again, the antenna for subtle energy is water, and specifically coherent water domains in water.
I see. Let's go a little bit more in this consciousness problem, because probably, you know, the human mind or human consciousness is a key for many different unconventional phenomena. Moreover, we do not observe unconventional phenomena without specific people, specific person. We call this a gifted person, or with people as a person with some extrasensory or psychic abilities. So now let's discuss a little bit more about this. I understand your point. You say, well, we need a kind of additional substance. We call it subtle field or dark matter or something else, what we discover later on. But if we think about consciousness, how to explain all these unusual capabilities of consciousness by this subtle matter, for instance?
Well, I think that this is one of the greatest problem of consciousness research is how is it possible that in our brain, whatever we are conscious of at the moment, like my voice and picture you see and whatever else, is represented in our brains separately in very different neurons, you know, but you are conscious of them in the same moment, you know. So this complex, let's say, one consciousness image is in your mind, you know. This is one of biggest problems of consciousness. So it means that at certain level, what is going on in our brain in separated millions of neurons is completely integrated, fused, synthesized at our consciousness level, at our mind level. And what I said previously about this orgone, about what our model based on many research is that it is something that is coherent, you know, on the macroscopic scale all the time. So we can say that the part of this biofield that covers our brain is a huge coherent domain in which everything is whatever is here or there, you know, or it's at least at certain centers in the brain is momentarily connected. And this is the reason why we can have this synthetic picture. So I think that the biofield is completely important, you know, we can have different ideas what biofield is, but something that can be entangled at the moment through a large space, because it's quite a large space for this nanoscopic phenomena, in brain, like in our synapses or so, they're very minuscule in comparison to the volume of our brain. So this should be momentarily connected, and the connections that we know, like axons, you spoke about them previously, do not suffice. And so this level that behaves quantum-like, and that can enter into quantum, let's say, events in microtubules, is covered by the biofield. So do I see the connection between consciousness or mind on one side and brain on the other side.
Igor, at least it sounds like we have a kind of human part in us and some, transcendental part in us. Something, what is not from this world, something from completely outside, Do you follow this way? So it's a kind of gift for us? Or you say it's something like what we can explore with science of today or tomorrow?
Yes, I think that really to scientifically, in the way science is understood today, to cover this is a case of future research. Today we can speculate about that. I think that ether does not cover our mind, that ether is actually something, again, mediating between mind, between this, what we understand as us, as ourself, our will, if you wish, and the brain, this, what we know from our experience and research. So yes, in this sense, mind should transcend even this etheric level. So in my belief or hypothesis, there is room for transcendence, and actually we don't know what is, let's say, biofield can be out of organisms. We can have phenomena, that we are not conscious of, because we are only beginning to detect ether. It's just on the beginning. But we know for many phenomena that, of course, may be seen as completely irrational, or even mad, but that stop to be irrational if we resort to biofield, to ether, that can have its own existence out of this matter. And even in our experimental practice, we know phenomena of distant influence that, let's say, a bioenergy healer could influence water on the distance of 60 kilometers, Yeah. And we have also experienced, I think that I even showed this at one of water conferences, that one bioenergy healers achieved just to form special, let's say, crystals or special formations of evaporated water remnants just by his will, and he succeeded to repeat this too, and they were completely different from the control. So in our experimental practice, we know that you can influence something on distance by your mind, and we again think that this is done by this biofield influence.
That's a good point. Look, currently there is a very popular theory about this mental internet. So all our consciousness are connected to each other. So through this, let's call it telepathic influence or quantum entanglement at macroscopic level. I mean, we can formulate orgone or ether, in different way. So we have a kind of normal internet, physical internet, and we have a mental internet. And now the point is, well, probably we can, take some functionality from this mental internet. We can properly communicate with each other. We can meet people who already passed away. From this, do you think is this, let's say, from scientific point of view, possible?
Yes, I would say that if we take this hypothesis and what we already know about the ether, about the possibilities of entanglement, of let's say long-distance connections and similar, this hypothesis is very feasible. And yes, I think that if we achieve certain, let's say, a quietude of our mind, this would mean that we decrease the Brownian movement of our molecules or in brain, so that in a way, let's say, we increase the proportion of coherent water in our brain, then we can tune more into this etheric domain, and then by this we can achieve something like you mentioned, that would be similar to telepathy or to tune in with this etheric internet. I think that this is what was achieved by certain, let's say, saints or some yogis or whoever. I see this possibility.
Can we take information? We can download some information from this mental internet. So I think it should be possible.
I think even that this happens. It was even in the evolution of science shows that many times the same ideas came to quite separate scientists, at the same time.
Okay, they download the same idea. Okay, I see.
Yes, it seems that there was something like the mind field, something new in this mind field that came to them, through this internet.
Yeah, it's good. But okay, download. Now about upload. Potentially, I can upload my consciousness to some, let's say, non-biologically embodied device. I don't know what it is. Let's call it dark computer or well, what we discover probably later. But potentially, if we speak about such mental internet, so I can download something, but I can in the same way upload my consciousness and then exist in this mind field or informational field or noosphere or whatever. There are many different names for this. Do you think is this possible, at least in some common level of consideration?
Yes, I think that what this NDE experiments and OBE experiments showed is something very similar. So in certain cases, I know for such case also in our town that was not published, but was let's say confirmed by medical doctors against their will and convictions, is that somebody who was operated, for instance, remembered something that was going on during his operation, and even was capable of telling what was in the room or some space that he couldn't know, just because he was lifted, in this, let's say, biofield body.
Avatar.
Something like that, yeah. So I think that there are many cases of that, so that in a way you can upload into this yourself, into this biofield level, and perhaps even go around.
Okay, Igor, the time is slowly, going to the end. I have some short questions, and you give some short answers. Probably we have some short discussion here. What's about human immortality? Do we believe? Are we, let's say generally, are we immortal as a human being?
Well, this is. I can speak about that in the sense that yes, there are many phenomena that can support this assumption. So I think that there was big, and that it still lasts, research about so-called reincarnation, so that certain memories and stigmas and so on were presumably transmitted from one, let's say, incarnation to another. So this will speak in favor of our potential immortality. And what I said before, NDE, OBE, and even some other researchers, and of course, let's say some traditions like Hindu and Tibetan and so on, if we take them seriously, we can have a lot of support to assume that our mind can transcend the death of the physical body.
Okay. Then next closely connected question. In one of the last stream, we discussed about humanism and post-humanism. Because here, we have our embodiment, and this embodiment defined who we are, our human's nature. But if we lose this body, probably we lose our humanity. We will not have the same humanism. Probably we will have some post-humanism. I don't know. The question is, what do you think? Are we still human in this, let's say, immortal stage, or we will be transformed to somebody else? I mean, completely not human at all. The same question is basically to technological immortality. If we receive all these implants, then probably we will be no human anymore, any longer.
From the scientific standpoint, it's a pure speculation, but I would say that this is much closer to the essence of a human being. From our body is our mind. So I would say that the mind is something that defines us much more than the body. So I would assume that even in this post-body formation, we should be similar, only with much we would have a lot of more possibilities, in a way it would be not so close, as we are now. So we could have a much better capacities to be informed, perhaps to feel, to be entangled with anything we want and so on. I think that would be a lot of more freedom, also for our minds.
Are we Superman in that way?
I would say that our minds would retain the stage, but they wouldn't work anymore through this clumsy brain. And so let's say that etheric brain, whatever does it mean, would enable us to think much quicker and in a more complex forms, maybe even in some higher dimension.
Okay, last question also in the same way. If we think about immortality and other world, from scientific point of view, we meet a concept of God, because it's a kind of highest being at all. And the question is, from scientific point of view, do you think the existence of God is possible? Is this a kind of super human, or is it completely transcendent? So is even not comparable with any superhuman or whatever?
If I take now my vision and understanding, but this is very far-fetched as far as contemporary science goes, I would say the following. If we understand the nature of the ether first, that this is something all-encompassing and at a certain level, like Bohm's theory of implicate order would say that it is at a certain level of this implicate order, there is a wholeness of everything, Then if even in this brain there is a sort of intelligence, I would expect that at the level of this wholeness, that would work something super intelligent, something, I don't see the reason why not, first, we may have doubts why, but at the same time we can have also doubts why not, and it seems more logical that if we have a highly integrated system, that a sort of intelligence appears. I would even say that, as I'm now speaking as a biologist, and I see the emergence of intelligence throughout all species, then I can say, well, it seems that intelligence is a constitutional part of the whole universe. And if we now put this together, there is room for some, let's say, super intelligence. But I think that it would work in a completely different or much higher manner than we can think about, not autocratically, or I think that the concept of God we have maybe not appropriate for such superhuman intelligence.
So super intelligence is a good notion. Yeah. Okay, then we have a couple of questions in a YouTube chat. One question to you, experience with conductivity. Why do we have a higher conductivity of treated water? What is the explanation for this?
There is a very simple explanation. Namely, as I told you, the ether should work, should support these coherent domains, and let's say coherent water. And it is known that if water is more coherent, it means also higher conductivity. Then electrons or protons can be conducted as if there were less Brownian movement, so they can move more swiftly. This is a simple explanation.
Okay. Now, what's about sensors? You say that you use water-based sensors and spectroscopy, UV with spectroscopy. Do you use anything else?
not for the time being. We had ideas about surface tension and some other too, but then we saw that we should concentrate on perfecting the detection method protocols, of the sensors we already use. So this, and we are doing now such very systematic research.
Okay, Igor, thank you very much for this very fascinating discussion. I mean, it was a lot of unusual questions, of course, because we really touch and meet all these new topics, and of course we should ask these unusual questions. Okay, I hope everybody to our auditorium, we invite you to the water conference that will take in Amsterdam in October. Igor, please correct me, in 11 to 14 of October, yeah?
Something like that.
Something like this. So if you would like, to meet all people from the community, to have more in-depth discussions in the field, then please come to this water conference. Okay, then thank you very much again. So then we meet you in the next stream, next of this seminar. Okay.
Okay. So goodbye.